The Florida State Seminoles finally get some good news from the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Florida State has some very important official visits coming up that we're going to discuss. They've got a possible commitment coming in the transfer portal, possibly more than one, and they actually have a commitment from today, and that's where we start the show. And it's an important one. There's been a lot of maybe, could be, here's the visit, this is the player they're after, but there was no finalization of late. Florida State's had a little bit of success in the portal, but they get ElyneMatthews, a kid that, ironically, is a 2025 recruit who enrolled early at Rutgers and then didn't like it, or whatever happened. Now he's transferring, and it's to Florida State. 6'6", 6'7", somewhere in that range, give or take 340 pounds. He's obviously a big young man. He is also somebody who has a world of upside. I'm going to go over a little bit of his film. We're going to talk a little bit about what I saw on the film and really just why it's so important to Florida State as a whole. Number one, let's just start right there. They got some good players that I liked in the 2025 recruiting class. I do. The offensive line, they did a pretty good job, but they could have used one more. This is essentially that guy because he enrolled early at Rutgers and now he's just moving over to Florida State. So to me, he's a recruit, but technically it is a transfer portal player, and it gives you another option to either guard or tackle, whichever one he ends up playing. In high school, ElyneMatthews played both left tackle and right tackle for Toms River North High School in New Jersey. He's seen his fair share of battles against some athletes in Jersey, and he's also a guy that I thought was very patient with his pass protection, very unusual for a high school lineman. And he was also a guy that would grind after contact. He didn't just lean on the guy, try to move him out of the way with his upper body strength. He moved his feet. Does he need to get quicker? Does he need to get a lower base? Does he need to change his body? Of course, those things are almost steadfast across the board with even five-star offensive tackles. Jalen was ranked just over number 500 in the country by 24/7. Like a lot of linemen his size that need to kind of reshape their body, that's a common number, but it's up to him. I like the ability for him to be a balanced lineman, though. He's played both sides. He's not somebody that gets out over his feet and just tries to go for kill shots. He's very patient, and he does his due diligence on each rep. I like him a lot. I'm a little surprised he wasn't ranked a little higher because of his ability to play right and left by 24/7, but whatever. The point is still the same. The upside's through the roof. I know Miami at one point wanted him, Tennessee, etc. Like these are schools that went after him, but he just ended up picking Rutgers, and now he's going to Florida State. So this is a good trend. You're starting to see the first stage, and it's going to take about 3 years total, beginning with this class, for Florida State to get away from utilizing the transfer portal along the offensive line. It's okay to go get like one or two guys, but like this stuff where you're taking 4, 5, 6, that's got to go. That's not how you build continuity. There's too much risk involved, and it's very expensive to do. If you want to win, you win through the high school ranks with O-line recruiting more than any other position. No doubt about it. The Final Four teams in the playoff, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, they recruit almost exclusively from the high school ranks on the offensive line. Coincidence they were in the Final Four? It is not. So Florida State has a nice class, plus they add Matthews. This is a good development. Now, here's the other good news. I'm ready for as much as I can give you, to be honest. Just got off the phone with a contact. I think Florida State's going to get another commitment in the next day or so. And there could be more than one. I'm speaking on one player specifically. That could also help Florida State. If that happens, you could be in a situation, I'm not going to give it away, but you could be in a situation where you're starting to build depth at multiple spots and you're finding a way to actually assemble an offense the way it's supposed to be. Younger players being developed. Florida State's doing a good job with what they can because spring window, honestly, wasn't very good. There wasn't a lot of talent in the spring window. So I like what Florida State has done so far. We'll see how that goes, but I expect another transfer, barring something unforeseen, and this is the transfer portal era, which that's a lot of. They should be getting another guy. The question now is, how many players do they want to bring in out of all these visits? They got 3 or 4 more guys coming in. Just from what I was told, I don't know how accurate this is, but this upcoming weekend, they got multiple offensive linemen that are going to come this weekend. But that could go away if there's a commitment from the guy I'm talking about. And there's some other players we need to talk about as well. Marcuston Douglas transferred to Arizona State, transferred to Florida State, said he was going to leave. Now he's not. Biscuit is staying. I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but Mike Norvell talked about it at his little press conference, and he seemed happy. To be honest, I was asked to study up today because I went on the Locked on Auburn podcast because they got questions about tight ends. The transfer portal at tight end is not good. Florida State is lucky to keep Marcuston Douglas. It is not good. They needed another veteran, and he obviously knows the program well because he's been at school in Tallahassee before. That might be as big a news as there is, and I know it's kind of weird, but it's just supply and demand. Florida State, again, they've had all these visits. They got more visits coming up. But the key thing that Florida State has probably done more than anything else since the portal opened in December and all the way through April, keep their players. For the most part, that's the most important thing they've done. And I know that sounds kind of boring, but like Ohio State, that was their number one goal last year and this year. Penn State's doing a good job of it. Notre Dame's doing a good job of it. Texas is doing a good job of it. Even Ole Miss, for the most part, but that's random to say about them, programs that were either in the playoff or right on the cusp, that has been the focus at programs from everybody I've spoken to that's close to these schools, keeping their players in-house. Florida State's done a pretty good job of it overall. Is it perfect? No, it is not. But they did a nice job, and they've added some pieces, offensive line, since we're talking about that. 4 of them that are projected to start. Maybe they end up with 1 or 2 more guys that play right away or at least are ready to play in year 2, year 3 that are younger guys. So the transfer portal is not just helping Florida State right now. It's got to remember, it's keeping your guys out of the transfer portal because that's how you lose. The teams that got hit with starters leaving are going to be the programs this fall. They go 6-6 with FanDuel projected win totals of like 8, 9, 10. You lose chemistry, especially at the offensive line position. You lose chemistry, you lose your drive for your top players to be there. There are questions, you're in a lot of trouble. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the O-line that Florida State recruited to get themselves in this mess. I wanted to kind of go back and dive into it a little bit. Who did they sign? Why did they sign them? And where they ended up, like the classes of 2020, 21, 22, and 23. How did Florida State truly fare? Looking at the numbers along the offensive line, you're going to be shocked at how this turned out. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes into play, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you start using Monarch, realize that you're going to get all these different opportunities to eliminate things like too much food delivery, Ubers, going out spending money needlessly. It will help you budget smarter and save more. It is also something that you can do because you manage with your partner to save time, set goals, and again, save money for the future. So make sure that you understand it's not just you, it can be you and your partner. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Just how bad was Florida State's offensive line recruiting from 2020 until 2023? Those 4 classes. A couple of points here. In totality, they signed 16 players, which is pretty normal. Okay? They signed a good number of kids from the deep South, Florida, Georgia, etc., Arkansas. They signed kids from the normal places. Okay, that's good. But here are the raw numbers by year. It is mind-blowing how poorly, how pathetically the former offensive line coach either recruited, developed, or both these players. Here we go, starting with the year 2020, to get Florida State in this mess. They signed 4 guys. They signed a 3-star 4 times. They didn't have a 4 or 5-star in that group. This is all by 24/7. The only player out of that class that really contributed, Robert Scott Jr. Pretty good player, just ran into a lot of injuries. That happens. But the other 3 guys, non-factors, transferred. 2021, only signed 2 guys. I want to make a special note here. That's the first full year for Norvell to recruit. Getting 2 O-linemen? Your offensive line coach being responsible to change it because the O-line was a problem before they even got there. They just made it worse because it festered. Signing 2 linemen in 2021 is the most egregious act, recruiting-wise, since Norvell took over in Tallahassee. 2 players. And honestly, neither one of them did anything. So in a combination of 6 players in 2 recruiting classes, you got 1 player that was serviceable, started a little bit, but ran into injuries. In 2 recruiting classes. Unbelievable. 2022, they tried to make up for it. I'll give them credit. They signed 6 players, 2 4-stars, 3 stars, they signed 4. They all transferred, all 6, now that Jalen Early has departed. At least he started a little bit last year. Wasn't that great, but he started some. Okay? So now you're to a point where you're 12 players deep over a 3-year period, and you've had 2 guys make a contribution. Out of 12 players, and neither one was an NFL player or even a consistent starter at Florida State. From 3 recruiting classes. Has that ever happened at Florida State since Bowden took over? This has got to be the only time. Finally, in 2023, they signed a 4-star and a 3-star. We still got to see, but there's been some reports. Andre Otto played a little bit last year. He was overmatched, but he gave a good effort, and he played multiple spots trying to plug holes. And then you got Lucas Simmons. We've heard some good things, some bad things, but he's still young. We'll see. If he starts to push the pile and we hear good things this fall, I'll know. But a lot of people thought he would at least be the right tackle, if not the left tackle of the future for Florida State in the year 26 and 27. And that's kind of where I'm at. We'll see. But they only got a couple of guys in 2023. And there you go. 24 and 25, I'm not going to grade because those guys are too new. We'll see. But they're a little bit too new. So I want to go over a couple of things here in regards to O-line recruiting, just to reiterate what I talked about a minute ago with the Final Four, Penn State, Texas, etc. Florida State is at least trying now. 25 class, you had ElyneMatthews, which is basically a recruit. I know he transferred from Rutgers, but by all means, he's a recruit. And then you got some other good players coming in too that have upside. Got a real O-line coach, got somebody that understands how to develop in Herb Hand. He's been at Texas, he's been at Auburn, he's been at UCF. They should be in a good spot. The question is, can they get at least one guy every year, minimum, that is a top-notch offensive tackle? And I just want to talk about a couple of the recruits that they've got coming in for visits, coming up here pretty soon. It's not too much to ask, in my opinion, to get at least one offensive tackle. But they've got a couple guys coming in on the very first weekend that they're doing the OBs. Samuel Roseborough from Clearwater High School down near Tampa. I like his film a lot. Powerhouse. Could probably play guard or tackle. Doesn't really matter, but he's got really quick feet. I like him, and I think he's a guy that could start as a redshirt sophomore, maybe even by the end of his redshirt freshman year. I don't like freshman playing, just for the record. But that's going to be a very unique recruitment. Samuel is a guy that's coveted by numerous programs, ACC, Big Ten, SEC, etc. He's got official visits lined up with Florida State. I don't know how many others will get lined up. There's probably a few more that are going to come around here pretty soon, I would expect. But if you really want to look at it, he might be the most important guy, and he's one of the first, because Florida State has a really good chance with him to get the first OV, and he might be your left tackle after Lucas Simmons. Really, really important that they do well with Mr. Roseboro. Now, they also have Johnny Jones coming in. He's from Berkeley Prep. I think he's a little more of a project, but he's long as all get out. He's 6'6". He's over 300 pounds. Goes to an elite academic institution in Berkeley Prep. They got a really good head coach there that's a long-time tenured coach in the state of Florida and the country, for that matter. He's been coached well. That's another tackle that you have a chance at. And then when you move up just one more visit weekend for the Florida State Seminoles and you get into the week of June 6th, there's some more opportunities. So the first 2 weekends are going to be important for Florida State football. But Javion Cooper, kid, we've talked about Syracuse coming into Florida State and Miami and Florida's house, stomping all over it. He committed to Syracuse a long time ago. But Melbourne Central Catholic is where he's at. Could maybe play right tackle, but probably a guard. I don't care. He's a pretty athletic guy. He's 300 plus pounds. Javion Cooper would be a good player for Florida State to add, especially if you're going to run power football under Gus Malzahn. He's a downhill guy, and I'm down with that all day long. So the last guy, and they probably, I don't know what took him this long, but Aaron Thomas, his dad played at Florida State in the 90s. He just got offered. He's coming in that weekend. He's a pure offensive tackle, 6'6", 300 pounds. He's at Mountain Point High School, famous program in Phoenix, Arizona. That would be a really big pickup for Florida State. He's got offers from around the country, Texas A&M, Washington, all over the place. Another offensive tackle opportunity, though. So that's important. And, oh, by the way, just for the sake of argument here, he's already committed to Florida State, but that second weekend, Michael Ionata is coming in, the offensive lineman at Calvary Christian, also from Clearwater, Florida, kind of like Roseboro. They live in the same area. So Florida State is trending in the right direction with offensive linemen. And before we go into the last part of the show, I just want to bring this up in general. If you're going to win long-term at Florida State, you got to get back to this. You got to get back to this. I'm going to talk about the NFL draft here in a second as a barometer, but how important are offensive linemen, even at the highest level? We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft, relate it back to Florida State, and I'm going to bring up some guys that are from when I was growing up. Like, this is how it was done. There's one guy in particular that I want to talk about. If you want to win at an elite level at Florida State, O-line is the key because you're always going to get the skill guys. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. For those of you that are old enough to remember, Brett Williams was the guy at offensive tackle for the Noles in the late 90s. That was the left tackle that dominated. I believe he played at Osceola High School in Kissimmee. I could be wrong, but he's from that area, greater Orlando area. Whichever high school it was, national recruit, Michigan, Notre Dame, Florida, Miami, everybody went after him. He picked Florida State. He ended up being a multi-year starter, and quite frankly, he might be the best tackle they had in the Bowden era, especially on a really good team. He was just a natural and pass pro, and he was roughly 300 pounds. Those are good traits to have. Now, that team also had so many elite talent. I get it. They had Winky. They had all these guys that could run. There was, I don't want to name just a couple of guys. Obviously, they had Peter Wark, who won the Heisman, but they had so many guys that could make plays. It was insane, but your quarterback's not going to do it unless the left tackle can keep him clean. So Florida State was really, really good. If you could, it doesn't have to be somebody as good as Williams, but from 87 through 92, when they struggled with Miami for the most part, if they could have added one more offensive lineman in any of those years, 89 they beat them, but I don't think they beat them any other year during that tenure. They could have added one more really good offensive lineman. Florida State would have a couple more national titles. Or at least they would have played the national title game. Maybe in 88, they would have played Notre Dame. Or maybe in 90, they would have been the title. Like, that was the weirdest year ever in college football. They were better than Colorado and Georgia Tech, but Florida State shot itself in the foot. Part of it was O-line play. Adding linemen, consistently getting those players in your program is huge. And here's another little point to that before I finish up the show. The 2025 NFL draft backs up what I'm saying. Off the top of your head, without looking, how many first-round picks do you think went to either offensive guards or tackles? The combined. How many? There are 32 picks. How many went to guards and tackles? The answer? 8. The equivalent of 25% of the first-round picks were offensive linemen. How important is that? 25%. Here's the list, and I'll go a little backstory on a couple of these guys, but Will Campbell, left tackle, LSU. He's from the Monroe, Louisiana area. I thought he was the best tackle in the country coming out of high school. I was steadfast with it, and he proved it. He was a freshman starter, 3 and out at LSU. That is about as hard as it gets. Number 4 overall, New England Patriots. Armand Mimbo, right tackle. Not a left, a right tackle. Number 7 to the Jets. Kelvin Banks, left tackle, Texas. Another kid highly recruited. New Orleans Saints. Number 12, out of IMG Academy, Tyler Booker. He's played guard and tackle at different times in his high school and college career. Played at Bama. Cowboys, number 12 overall. Great story on this next kid, just from an evaluation standpoint. I assume he wasn't very highly rated. Greg Zabel, offensive guard, North Dakota State. Isn't that awesome? Like, sometimes you don't have to play Power 4 or even G5. So wild. He's going to Seattle from North Dakota State. Number 24, Donovan Jackson. He played some tackle, but he's primarily a guard. Ohio State Buckeyes. He's going to the Minnesota Vikings. Pick number 24. Pick number 29, Oregon Ducks. Josh Connerly, elite recruit. Some thought he was the number 1 lineman coming out of high school. Plays for the Oregon Ducks. He's headed to Washington. And then 32, Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, Ohio State. He was a transfer, but he's going to the Chiefs from Ohio State. That's a guy, I believe he was at San Diego State before. But most of these guys were recruited to the program they ended up leaving from to go to the pros. Simmons, I believe, is about the only, I don't know about the Zabel kid or Zabel, however you say his name. All the other kids, I believe, were recruited to those programs. I could be wrong. I'm not sure about if it's Mimbo or whatever his last name, how it's pronounced for the kid at Missouri, but you got to get the high school kids. These guys were recruited to those programs and developed over time. A few of them, it was iffy what level they were going to reach, whether it was NFL, whether they could play tackle guard. Like, it takes time to figure that stuff out. Florida State is not there yet. They need to get there, and this is a part of the process. So keep in mind, Florida State, as I said earlier, this is year 1, in my estimation, of Florida State developing their depth along the offensive line. It's a long process. At minimum, they need 3. That's the way it is. This next December and probably the one after, they're going to need probably 2 offensive linemen from the portal each time. Come 28, somewhere in there, they shouldn't need to. They could get lucky and not need to if everybody hits before then, but that's asking a lot. There are injuries, guys don't develop, guys get in trouble, whatever. But they've started on a good path with this 25 group, and again, you're adding ElyneMatthews from Rutgers. So he is essentially a part of Florida State's 2025 recruiting class. I'm good with that. Now, let's talk about this class to finish up the show. Can you get at least 4 quality offensive linemen with at least 2 being offensive tackles? No doubters. I'm playing tackle if that's my best spot. I could play guard, but it's best for me and your program if I play tackle. That is the objective. They got a lot of good players coming in for visits. They got a lot of good players. I just went over the first couple of sets of visits and all that. That's fine. We will see if that helps. They get those first visits. Maybe they can get kids to commit before they visit another school. That's not too much to ask. You're going to get, if you do a good job and they got plenty of playing time to sell, pretty much that whole offensive line is going to be gone after this year. You got a chance to be on the 2 deep as a freshman, which is not good. But Florida State, again, they're probably going to have to hit the portal just to get depth beyond starters. So we'll see how that goes. Florida State should be in a much, much better spot by the end of next season. This season coming up, I think it's going to be a little bit dicey. But what are you really going to do? I mean, it is what it is, right? Sometimes you just got to take the best players you have and make it work. And there's again, as I noted earlier, they should get one more guy. We'll see how that goes. But right now, Florida State is at least trending. They got some good news with the kid. ElyneMatthews committed. And they've got the visits coming up to kind of turn the tide. They can get back-to-back O-line classes that are pretty good. Then you're back on track. That third year, it's about getting the elite kids, and you could be rather picky. It would be the first time in a decade, that the Florida State Seminoles could be picky on the offensive line, especially at tackle. That's been their biggest albatross, is finding good offensive tackles. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Please hit that like button, that subscription. Make sure you share this podcast and communicate with your other Florida State friends about this pod. I'd love to see them come and check it out. And if you would, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you take your podcasts on the go. We will see you again soon.